Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, despite of International Court of Justice ruling on May 24th, 2024, illegitimate state of Israel continues its atrocities, genocide, war crimes in Palestine, particularly in Gaza. United States and Germany's uninterrupted arms supply continue to Israel. Unfortunately, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, 36,224 Palestinians have been killed so far, while 81,777 others injured. Israeli occupation forces got control of Rafah border crossing with Egypt. Life of 2.3 million Gaza people are at stake right now. No water, food and medicine supply coming to the besieged enclave. The United Nations Refugee Agency for Palestinians, UNRWA, announced it would suspend food distribution in Rafah because of no supply coming from the border area. More than 1 million of the Palestinians have been forced to flee Rafah. United States is completely mum on International Court of Justice ruling while Israel criticizing the order. But European Union demands explanation from Israel about Rafah invasion. On the other hand, after Ireland, Spain and Norway, Slovenia approves recognition of Palestinians but needs Parliament's approval. United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Ms. Francisca Albanese, categorically said, and I quote, that Israel will not stop this madness until we, United Nations, make it stop. Member states must impose sanctions, arm embargoes, and suspend diplomatic and political relation with Israel. Then it cease its assault. United Nations Security Council can do that, but how? Because we have seen over the years that United Nations Security Council, unfortunately, is in the hands of the 5 permanent members. And during this whole Gaza crisis, we have seen that United States and Britain, they were the most powerful over there in United States, in United Nations, because of their veto power. And that's why there is no ceasefire in Gaza. To discuss this whole important situation and very vital for the humanity, for the people who are living in Gaza, they are facing atrocities and genocide at the hands of illegitimate state of Israel on every second. To discuss this, we have in our studios Dr. Saweeda Rahman. She is the assistant professor and affiliated with the School of Politics and International Relations at the Quaid-e-Azam University. Most welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your arrival. And with her, Mr. Akbar Shehryar Khan. He is the research analyst at the Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Most welcome to you, Akbar. Thank you. And online joining us, Ali Sarwar Naqvi Sahab. He is the former ambassador and a very seasoned diplomat. Most welcome to you, Ali Sarwar Naqvi Sahab. Thank you very much for joining online. My first question to you, Mr. Ambassador, that what are the implications of the International Court of Justice ruling on Israel's occupation, the potential consequences of the Gaza invasion, using starvation as weapon, complete aid blockades, settlement policies and expansion in the West Bank, while what would be the impact on the legitimacy of the Palestinians' claim to the statehood?
Yes, this is an unprecedented situation in international relations, because nowhere before, at no time and nowhere have a large body of population been subjected to total deprivation, and atrocities are being waged upon them, imposed upon them. Bombing is being carried out. Men, women, and children are suffering. And as you yourself said, more than 34,000, I think the figure has now gone up to 36,000 Palestinians have been killed so far. And the total is mounting up day by day. It's going on. So it is an unprecedented situation. Now, as regards the ICJ ruling, which prohibits Israel from carrying out an operation in Rafah, which is the position, which is the latest sort of act by Israel that is impending. In fact, Israel has effectively started the offensive in Rafah, despite the ICJ ruling, and does not seem to be worrying about this stricture by the World uh, Forum of Justice. And then we have had the UN Security Council hamstrung because of the veto power that you mentioned of the US, UK, and Western countries, particularly the US and UK. At the same time, there has been the decision of the International Criminal Court to charge Prime Minister Netanyahu with war atrocities and war criminal activities, because he will be then designated in a war criminal. And that is the negative. The positive is that you also mentioned the recognition of the Palestinian state by Norway, Ireland, and Spain. And Slovenia is also on the point of deciding the issue and in favor of the Palestinian people. I happened to be accredited to Slovenia when I was ambassador in Vienna. So I know Slovenia, the capital Ljubljana, and they are a people with a great moral sense. So the problem is that the bombing goes on, the atrocities go on, and all these international developments have significance, but they are not helping the Palestinian people. And that, unfortunately, is a very, very sad and pathetic situation that the
Mr.
international
Ambassador,
community.
Mr. Ambassador, you are absolutely right, because recognition of Palestinian statehood is that's okay, that's very welcoming. But on the other hand, the ground invasion by the Israeli occupation forces and the bombardment is still continues. So, what's the role of United Nations Security Council after Israel's the ruling, the International Court of Justice ruling against Israel particularly, and whether it can impose economic and military sanctions, the arm embargoes, the trade restrictions, asset freeze, the ban on Israeli military and the government officials, if the veto powers have any sort of a moral ground left?
Yes, this is a good question. I think technically, and as far as the international law goes, the ICJ ruling is an advisory ruling, but it should be taken up by the Security Council. And the Security Council is responsible for executive action on the part of the United Nations, which means what? It means that it can take military steps aimed at taking military action through peacekeeping force under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. In that, under the provision of Chapter 7, the United Nations can mobilize the international community, ask for contingents from different countries, and create a peacekeeping force which should immediately go to Gaza and stop the military actions that are being taken by Israel. However, because of the veto power and because of the support of Israel by the United States and United Kingdom, there is Nikki Haley, who was one of the presidential candidates, who has gone to Israel and is saying that she wants the action to continue for as long as the Hamas exists. So if you have that kind of attitude, a determination to use the veto, there cannot be any action on the part of the Security Council. And that is the very sad part of this whole saga.
Yeah, definitely. You are absolutely right. Your point well taken. Dr. Saweeda, do you think that entering of the Israeli tanks into the Rafah city, continues bombardment, closing down and controlling the last Rafah crossing, which was very vital regarding the humanitarian supplies to the Gaza people. Now there is a heightened tension between Egypt and Israel as well. So it is the height of the Israel's policy of dehumanization of the whole Gaza and cruelty towards the Palestinians, as they are now completely without medicine, food, water, shelter. Unfortunately, the situation is worsening to the full-blown famine. So how do you see, how you analyze this whole situation?
Well, Israel has proven to be one of the most atrocious violator of international law, and not only one kind of international law, but there is a very long list of different international laws which are being violated. As far as Israel's disregard towards international law is concerned, let me just add here that it is not only this ruling, the recent ruling of 24th May, which has been defied, but there have been two, like in January in total there were 3 rulings. And after each and every ruling, the very next day, Israel committed certain acts which were actually to show the world that we just don't care for international law. Moreover, the way the tent massacre has taken place, yes, that is really horrendous. But I see light at the end of the tunnel as well, because it is the very same tent massacre which has made European Union to review their relations with Israel. Just the other day, the cabinet of the EU, they recognized statehood of Israel, which is quite a positive gesture. And although there is no unanimous will which exists in the EU to sanction Israel, but they have started asking questions. Netanyahu has been called to explain his position. So I think that international law makes its course. It is a little bit slow, but it does have its role to play. Another thing which I want to add here is that as far as man-made famine is concerned, according to the Geneva Convention, man-made famine means that it is genocide through attrition.
Yes.
So it is a form of genocide. Although there have been in the first ruling, there has been this a part of the ruling is there where they call that there is plausibility of the intent of genocide, but there is no clear order calling it a genocide. Even the arrest warrants by the ICC, even they are not based upon genocide. There are other kinds of crimes which have been recognized, but there is a legal consensus, there is a consensus among a lot of law experts.
There is another actually a long list of International Criminal Court, particularly because that case actually going on from right from 2015, that is not
true.
Today that was not registered over there, and earlier that was again a long story. Even we need a one separate program on International Criminal Code as well. So your point well taken. So Akbar, when how might the ruling, the existing ruling or this third ruling, or that is basically in sequence with the other 2 rulings actually, how it influenced the international community's approach to the Israel-Palestinian conflict, and whether ICJ ruling shape up the Palestinian independence and the self-determination for which the Palestinians are sacrificing their lives from the last many years?
So, Faisal, in my opinion, there are 2. There is a positive and a negative to this. I'll start with the the negative, in the sense that despite the ruling, despite calls for a halt of military operation in Rafah, and the open negation of the laws of human rights and everything that we have seen happening in Rafah, the tent massacre. We've seen that these are the first steps where there is an erosion of what we call the so-called rules-based world order, because one state is completely blasting away all norms and rules, and it is not conforming to those international norms that other states conform to, and other states have been invaded and punished for doing much less. So in my opinion, this is an erosion of that facade of a rules-based world order, and the world is divided into 2. And I think that this will embolden certain powers in other regions to carry out the same actions if they are preferred by the Western powers, they are preferred by certain powers who have a say in the United Nations. So the positive is that we have seen in Europe, countries like Ireland, even Mexico is going to be joining this ICJ, they're supporting this. They've come out in support. But at the same time, we see those European countries who matter, like Germany, Czechoslovakia, and
unfortunately,
Hungary.
Germany is the lead supplier of arms to Israel.
They have used language that is not, they abstain from criticizing Israel and going out in the open against Israel. So I think that the main impact is that the world is divided, and that is going to be showing in this. The international order will be shifting after this.
So your point well taken. Ambassador Naqvi sahab, what could be the possible role of the United Nations Security Council in deploying the international observers or a United Nations peacekeeping force in the Gaza Strip, as it was that Israel is not ready to accept any kind of thing. So it means that United States is going to veto any such kind of proposal if there would be. So the Israeli occupied West Bank also is facing the torture, the killings, the murders at the hands of settlers and even the Israeli occupation forces. So until the two-state solution can be negotiated, it is important that there must have to be any kind of a third force over there under the United Nations umbrella to maintain peace over there, so that have the two-state solution. That was also proposed by Arab League earlier this month.
Yes, you see, Faisal, frankly, I worry about the future of the United Nations. For a moment, if we look at the United Nations and move away from the Gaza situation, you see, I see the United Nations eroding or completely crumbling as an institution. This is what happened to the League of Nations. The League of Nations became irrelevant when Italy occupied Ethiopia, Japan occupied Manchuria, and there was then eventually Hitler occupied Poland. So the breakdown of the international system that was witnessed at the time of the interwar period is something that looms before us, and I worry that the United Nations now today it has been defied by Israel. Tomorrow it might be defied by India because India has a problem in Kashmir, or day after it can be defied by some other power. So if this kind of thing happens, then the system fails. Now, going back to your question, the peacekeeping operations must come into effect, and this the international community should pursue. And I think if the Security Council is hamstrung, then the United Nations General Assembly should come into action, and the international community acting through a 2/3 majority may mandate the Security Council to create a peacekeeping force and to send it to Israel now and the Gaza area. So all these things should be done, but unfortunately everybody is just letting Israel do what it wants, and the suffering of the Palestinian people is not ending at all.
So when we are talking about that, Mr. Ambassador, how do you see Algiers draft UN Security Council resolution that essentially says to order Israel to immediately halt its military offensive in Rafah? They have also actually cited the International Court of Justice ruling as well. The resolution, if tabled, do you think that it will be passed because Israel's Western allies don't want to be to disturb even the Israel, because as you have rightly mentioned that they whatever Israel is doing actually, and nobody is stopping them. So do you not think that there must have to be such kind of resolution passed to have immediate ceasefire and binding upon Israel, so that Tel Aviv must have to be taken to task, particularly on its war crimes, what they have done over 7 to 8 months in Gaza?
Yes, I agree. I agree. I think I admire the Algerian government and the South African government, which took the matter to the ICJ, and now Algeria is tabling a resolution. This resolution uh, uh, will have to be processed in at two levels. First, there will be informal consultations of the Security Council. Uh, this I know from the time when I was in New York in the UN in the Pakistan mission, and after informal consultations. Uh, there would be a formal meeting of the Security Council in which voting will take place. In the voting, if the any of the P5 members vote against the resolution, then it is a veto, and then it cannot be implemented. The Algerian, so that I hope doesn't happen, but that is quite likely. Uh, the Algerian resolution calls for a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire. And I think that is what the international community should be pursuing. Apart from all the problems and differences and the difficulties that might be there between Israel and the Palestinians, between Israel and Hamas, the demand or the need of the hour is to stop the bombing campaign against the Palestinian people. This is what the international community must demand and must force Israel to accept. But Israel has its own domestic politics in which the people of, they show the demonstrations against Netanyahu, but that is not in support of the Palestinian people. That is in regard to getting the hostages from the freed from the Hamas. So there is domestic politics in Israel, and I don't think the government of Netanyahu is likely to stop its bombing, and that is the unfortunate thing.
So, Mr. Ambassador, what you think about it? What it seems that the United States of America actually reciprocating what Israel actually wants. So, both have this likely to be have same objectives, as the US is swiftly supplying weapons that actually kills Palestinians, giving diplomatic support to Israel everywhere, no words on the Palestinian genocide, completely mum on International Court of Justice verdict or the order. Now, US has never asked Israel to abide by these rulings, all these three rulings which were actually as a provisional measures by International Court of Justice and then the final order.
Yes, I agree with you completely. The United States must do that and is under obligation as a member state of the United Nations to implement these decisions and not supply arms to Israel as it is doing just now. The American government is again caught up in domestic politics in such a manner that they are reluctant to exercise pressure, though Biden has said it a few times, but they have not taken necessary action to stop Israel from carrying out these atrocities. And the positive is that the American public opinion is turning against the government's policies, especially the students. And the students in all the universities. This is what happened during the Vietnam War in 1968-69, when A, Johnson could not get re-elected, and B, the Vietnam War was stopped and Americans quit Saigon. So the Americans are now in a situation where the public opinion is turning against the government and is campaigning all over the country, from Columbia University to the University of California in Los Angeles. The entire breadth of the country is.
The situation is that in United States there is an election, presidential election in September, and despite of whatever is happening with the Republican candidate, Mr. Donald Trump, people are eager to make accountable Mr. Joe Biden because of his acts regarding the Gaza invasion, whatever is going on. So, your point well taken, sir. Dr. Saweeda, United Nations Special Rapporteur on occupied Palestinian territories, Ms. Francisca Albanese, categorically said, and I already quoted that it is not possible before any sort of action, the concrete action by the United Nations member states, and might be she is referring to the United Nations Security Council, that there must have to be embargoes, impose sanctions, arm embargoes, and suspend diplomatic and political relations with Israel till it ceases its assault. So, what do you say? Do you agree with this notion? Because this is very important statement.
Exactly, exactly. It's not only her point of view, but even the UN Charter, Article 94 of the UN Charter. It states that it is the responsibility of the Security Council to implement the rulings of the ICJ. ICJ's rulings are binding. They are not only advisory in their nature. So if a state is defying those, if a state is not actually implementing those, then it is the responsibility of the Security Council to make it implement. Moreover, there is one example which we have in the end of the March, the Ramadan ceasefire resolution, which was passed, where United States of America abstained from voting.
Yes.
So it was passed unanimously by 14 votes in favor of it. We can see, we can hope that if there is enough pressure, because we have seen how there has been pressure which is mounting
But that was
against
again
Biden.
binding. That was again binding because
This is also
UNSC, that was a binding. ICJ ruling is the binding.
Yes.
It's okay that UNGA resolution or anything, that is not going to be
That is not
binding.
yes.
But the problem is that these bindings are actually bindings in the papers. Unfortunately, on ground, nothing implemented.
Yes, so this is what I am saying, that it is the responsibility of the member states to the UN to discharge their duties as the custodians and especially Security Council, because Security Council has this, it has been given this duty by the Charter itself. Article 94, it very clearly states that whenever there is a decision of an ICJ, then it should, as it is binding, so it should be enforced. And if a state is not
So when we are talking about particularly, Dr. Saweeda, how do you see the, you were earlier mentioning about European Union.
Yes.
They demand explanation from Israel
Exactly.
over the actions in Rafah, particularly what is happening right now currently. Despite the ICJ ruling to cease all operations in the area. So EU policy chief Joseph Borrell called the strike horrifying and said it proves that there is no safe place for Gaza.
Exactly.
So
I see a change in the international stance, especially in the stance of the EU, because the ex-president of the EU was actually supporting this action. She was basically supporting Israel in its war, and it was calling the war to be a just war and all such things. But now this kind of a change, after the acceptance of the statehood of Palestine through the EU cabinet and reviewing the assistance agreement with the Israel, which started in 2000, and EU is the third largest trade partner for Israel. So they have started reviewing this agreement, and they have called Netanyahu for the acts which are taking place there. So this is, I think, a positive step. It is going to have an impact because Spain, Ireland, they have been really vocal. There are states which have been actually recognizing Palestine. Up till now, 147 states have recognized. Malta and Slovenia are going to do that very soon. So it will receive around 149 recognitions, and Israel is recognized by 165 states. So statehood of Palestine is going to make an impact. Moreover, this special status to Palestine, the resolution which was adopted by General Assembly, that has given Palestine an access to all the major bodies of United Nations.
definitely.
Yes. So that has also made it possible for Palestine to become a party to ICC.
Obviously.
So the jurisdiction has been established. So it is there.
Your point well taken, ma'am. Akbar, do you not think that most of the things happened already? It's been a 7th month which is already completed. So do you not think that now taking actions or the swift actions means that Israel has already attained most of the objectives what Israel want, particularly to dismantle the whole of the life in Gaza? And now, as ma'am was saying about the association agreement between European Union and Israel, that is the agreement to have the free access to the European market, to the Israeli, and that is basically if they are talking about reviewing such an agreement, and when they are talking about the monitoring mission, which was actually suspended in 2007, now they are reviving it at the Rafah border crossing. So how do you see this aspect of the European Union? It is bit far-reaching from the European side as compared to the United States, but they are taking lead right now.
I think it is too late.
Yes.
It's too late because life in Palestine will not be the same again. Things in Palestine will not be the same again after what Israel did following October 7th. And this is, in my opinion, more optics to, yes, pressurize Israel, because this is creating a negative public sentiment within European countries and in the United States. But I don't think it will be very meaningful, because you need a consensus in the European Union to actually go forward with this if they want to put sanctions on Israel or restrict Israel in some of its economic and other domains.
They are talking about reviewing.
They are talking about reviewing it.
Reviewing, not suspending or ending
Yes,
that association
it's mostly
agreement.
optics to pressure Israel to make things, but it's very slow and lazy in my opinion. And I don't think Europe will completely move away from the US line, especially keeping in view the situation in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. I think that they would require the United States to back them on their agendas, and I don't think that this will be very meaningful or far-reaching.
So, ma'am, what about the Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates and Qatar foreign ministers also met with the European leaders? So, how do you see that? Because ultimately, Palestine was the leading agenda during the whole talk. So, peace in Middle East, do you think that it is going to be attained in coming months or years?
Well, there are a few things which you have to keep in mind. There is always this criticism on United Nations and its inaction and things like that. We are always complaining about extraordinary importance which is given to United States of America and all. We should not forget that around 17 to 20% of the budget of UN is coming from United States of America, right? So that is why it is having a very huge say in the decisions which are taking place. Any entity which can challenge that supremacy of the US in the UN can be European Union, because from Europe around 40% of the UN budget is coming. So any entity which can challenge this supremacy, who can take United States of America heads on, can be EU. So it is very important to convince EU and its leaders, and as we see that there are these changes coming in the attitudes, it is for the first time in history that they have started talking about reviewing the special status of Israel. Germany, which is one of the major suppliers of weapons to the Israel, it has also given its statement that ICJ decisions are binding. Now that is something very, very interesting and very important, very significant in my point of view. So I think that although yes, maybe it's a little bit late, but it is not too late. Action needs to be taken.
Definitely, your point well taken. Akbar, what's your thought on the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan's decision to request the arrest warrants of Israeli Prime Minister and the Defense Minister as well, saying Israel's action were not how war is supposed to be fought? I
think this statement and his statement on the arrest warrants, this was very brave. Because his predecessor Fatou Bensou was being strong-armed and threatened by the ex-Mossad chief, which is Israel's foreign intelligence agency, and it has been notorious for carrying out assassinations across. Her
telephones were
globe.
taped, her husband's phone were taped, all emails were retrieved, spied, surveillanced, all that.
And the threat was very
Lots
open.
Of threats.
That they're saying that your security and your family's security could be at risk if you. And Netanyahu, it is said, I read this on media, that Netanyahu himself is very personally invested in knowing taping the current Karim Khan his statement. He has been tasking his intelligence to follow up on this, and he's been following this up personally. So I think it's a very brave move, but a much needed move. and there have been calls in the United States for sanctions against the ICC, but I don't believe that Biden administration will go that far, although they have called it outrageous. And while this is a brave move, again, I give a reference to Hitler that Mr. Ambassador also mentioned, that he was being appeased and appeased and appeased until European security came under threat. In Netanyahu's case, his actions are not threatening European security or the United States security. Obviously. His actions are threatening security in the Middle East and even the broader region. So these actions are slow, and they're not very quick, because there is no direct interest that is involved with saving Palestine or Gaza.
So your point well taken, Dr. Saweeda. What's your take on a democracy, a human rights champion, United States is actually thinking about some of the lawmakers? Actually, they are going to have to penalize ICC. And its officials, might be some sort of a sanctions. They are bringing some sort of a legislation into that they must have to be penalized. So some of 121 human rights and civil rights groups, they have written a letter to President Biden, to White House, to not to penalize and oppose any kind of such legislation against ICC. Although a statement came from President Biden that he is opposing actually such kind of legislation, but the thought is there. So how do you see the such kind of actions by a so-called largest democracy and the proponent of the human rights?
No, this is the dilemma. This is the dilemma of our times, that the one country which calls itself the custodian of democracy and human rights and liberty and freedoms, that very same country has been complicit in the acts of Israel. So yes, there has been this statement by Biden where he has decided not to place sanctions on the ICC officials, and Netanyahu has been blasting against it. There have been a number of resignations from US Biden administration. Just recently, Stacey Gilbert, she is the 8th official who resigned, and the reason which she gave was there were two reasons. One, that US and Biden is being complicit to genocide, and secondly, she stated that the report of the State Department absolving Israel from blocking the humanitarian aid coming into Gaza, they have absolved Israel from that, and she claims that this report is based upon patent lies. It is most of the experts within the State Department, they believe that Israel is responsible, but it was this report is based not upon the consensus, not upon the opinion of the legal experts. It is based upon lies. So the pressure is still there. The problem is that it is an election year.
Yeah, definitely.
So the domestic politics is playing a very major role. But the wave that has been created through, as the Mr. Ambassador has also mentioned, the youth seems to be very well aware of what are the requirements through international law. So that is going to play a role. I think that role has been started to show its faces everywhere in different decisions. Even the statement coming from Biden, who previously had stated he favored the sanctions against ICC officials, now when he changed the stance. So being an optimist, I do believe that things are going to change.
Joe Biden actually on 2nd of April 2021, he has already lifted those sanctions when Trump administration actually imposed upon international court, criminal court. So some of the credit goes to him, but unfortunately largely he is not reacting to what their people actually saying. So democracy must have to react what the people actually want.
It will.
So that is the important thing. So if you Akbar, if you just say about something just briefly, how do you see the statement of the Israeli National Security Advisor Zachi Hanebi, and he said that war could go until the year end, and another 7 months of the fighting to consolidate success means Israel won't complete occupation of Gaza, that might be including West Bank.
Yes, that is their strategic intent, and we must take the statement very seriously, because that is the plan, and it will not stop at there. I tell you, my forecast is in the future, once they're done internally clearing all their areas, and which they will do, and they are doing with impunity. No law is stopping them, no power is impeding them.
Yes,
they've done all they can do. So they will then move to other regional powers. It is a simple pattern that you see with other countries, that they want to reclaim.
Definitely, as Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Israel is unstoppable. After Gaza might be Anatolia.
Yes, and the reclamation of the historical territories and that narrative, it is gradually starting to build up, and I assure you that you will see this in the future if they are not stopped at this point.
So, Madam Saweeda, just only 1 minute we have. Do you think that this whole Gaza invasion, as Akbar has said, it is spilling over?
It is. We can see the example of Israel's conflict with Iran, blowing up the embassy in Damascus, again in violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961. So total disregard of another series of international laws. Then it's problems hitting the very central area, the central city of Banyas in Syria, killing one girl, little small girl, and injuring 10
and just
citizens.
The latest to Lebanon?
Yes, exactly, in Lebanon as well. Just let me add here that there have been around 4,000 strikes from Israel from between the period of 8th October till 15th April. So 4,000 strikes only in Lebanon in the border area. So that basically shows the ambitions and the potential of this conflict to spill over the whole of the region. It can spread to the whole of the region. So that
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So nice of you, Dr. Saweeda, for your arrival here and very candid discussion. Thank you very much, Akbar, for your views. And thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, as well. He is not with us. He actually left because of his urgent meeting. So we are thankful to him for his precious time. So viewers, you have just listened to our panelists, and they are very cautious about, they are very concerned about what is happening in Gaza and West Bank in Palestine, and world must have to react, because this is not the prime time that just the recognition, but we have to halt what the Israeli actions are. We have to halt bombardment and the genocide and the massacre which is going on in Gaza particularly, and even in West Bank because of the settlers. So United Nations Security Council can take a military action, as Ambassador Naqvi said, and the peacekeeping forces must have to take over and have a peace in Gaza and West Bank till the two-state solution must have to be intact. So world community must have to take part in that, and they have to not only accept the Palestinian statehood but also have a full membership in the United Nations overall, in UNGA as well as in the UN Security Council. Algiers have a very important resolution, draft resolution. If tabled, P5, the permanent 5 members must have to take a heart on that and accept it, because the ceasefire is inevitable. It is very important. It's urgent to save the humanity and the human lives over there. World is clearly divided into two right now. As one of the panelists said, that world must have to united when it comes to peace and stability in any sort of a region. UN role is questioned, unfortunately, is crumbling, and UN must have to assert itself as a real global body. When we are talking about the EU has belated but most welcoming steps taken by the EU right now, and European Union has to go on with its actions to save the people of Palestine and their statehood. As we all know, that International Criminal Court, we salute that they have taken a very brave step, because the war criminals anywhere in the world must have to be taken to task, whether it's even the Israeli Prime Minister or the Defense Minister, as the panelists said. And there are fears that if this war, which is not a war actually, it is the invasion by Israeli occupation forces and the illegitimate state of Israel upon the innocent people of Palestine, because it's straight away the massacre of the children, women and elderly over there. So if that persists, it is going to spill over. So this is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.